Stephanie, today we've just heard from Ann give a raving review of Trevor Thompson from Equity Real Estate, and we are going to be talking today about what, Steph?
We are going to be talking about those untouchable properties that most agents don't want, these distressed properties. So, Trevor, tell us a little bit about how you got, before we dive into the subject, tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry.
Okay, so I'm Trevor Thompson. I'm currently with Equity Real Estate. My main business revolves around we purchase properties as rentals, as flip properties, and we do what a lot of people call wholesaling, which is really assignments of contracts. So we'll purchase a property, we put it under contract, and a lot of times we will sell that contract even before closing with something similar to the assignment agreement that you would see on our local MLS. You know, there are ways that we can move a property to people that we know, whether that's investors or property owners, rental managers, people that buy them from us off market before they reach the MLS. Okay, so now you want history of Trevor Thompson. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got my license in 2005. I worked with RE/MAX for the first several years, and then the market crashed in 2008 and 2009. And I saw really quickly how business can go from really good and being a great buyer's agent and doing lots of transactions to almost no business at all, to the point where I never left the industry. I always kept my license active, but I went back to contracting for a couple of years, and then I became a property manager for a friend of mine, or someone who became a friend of mine. So I began managing about, I think we had 60 doors when I became a property manager, and over 4 years we grew that number to almost 90 or 95, and then I kind of left and went off on my own. But this investor, he not only taught me the reins of property management, dealing with tenants and leasing, but he also opened my eyes to, as you call them, the untouchable properties, these properties that are in bad condition and hurt neighborhoods, and the way that he was buying them with him and his friends to either remodel and resell, or remodel and add to his rental portfolio. And really, he taught me the ropes of knowing your numbers, having contractors, being able to deal with those properties in a way that's beneficial for not just the investor, but also for the people who sell the property and for the people who will later live in that home, whether it's a tenant or an owner. So I spent 4 years doing that. We're in 2021 now, so almost about the last 5.5 years I've been with a different group. I've been with Equity Real Estate for 6 years. There are several partners that we work with closely from time to time, but I would say in the last year, I looked at my numbers. I had 42 listings, and 85% of those were houses that we owned ourselves. Okay. We help 10 to 12 buyers a year, which is not something that's outrageous, but those are family members, and those are sometimes sellers of the properties that we buy. And then we had at least 25 other properties that we moved that never hit the MLS, because we know who they're for, we know who's looking for one, and we move those properties. After we purchase them, we move them on to an end user without even ever owning the property or remodeling it ourselves. Okay, so that's quite a bit of, I would say, well-rounded experience, because there are a lot of unique situations that come up. And I tell sellers all the time, your house there are lots of houses similar to yours, but your situation makes it unique. Everyone has a different scenario, and I have never bought the same house twice.
Fabulous.
I know I'm getting stage fright.
Well, no, I'm always interested in distressed properties, because it seems like when you just hear the word itself, or challenging properties, whatever you want to say, immediately people shy away because it seems like something that they could lose money at. So your experience in selling distressed properties, you purchase them, is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah. Right now on my board we have 11 properties that we own between myself and my two closest friends.
And what is when you buy these properties and you intend to turn them around, is there a time frame that is reasonable to turn around a distressed property, or do you have to hold on to it for a long period of time?
It depends on the market, and it depends on our goal for the property. So we have properties that may take, several months to a year for a remodel and a resale or a refinance. But our goal typically, and especially in a very fast moving market right now, we love to hold properties and have the disposition, which means the sale, or however we do it, use the disposition within 90 days if possible. But we'll take on projects that last up to 6 months on a regular basis. If it's longer than that, it's probably a unique scenario where something different is going on. But our main goal is to own in as short of a time frame as possible, because profit margins are great when when you buy it and you can sell it quickly. You have very little risk. So we like to move things very quickly as well.
Now, does it take a lot of experience in this in order to understand the time frame? Because as a novice, for instance, if I was going in to buy a distressed property, I might think, okay, I'm going to turn this around in 30 days, 60 days, and if it ends up taking 6 months to turn around, obviously I'm losing money.
Yeah, and that depends on how you bought the property in the first place, okay? So, for example, I'm buying a home in Tooele that I put under contract after I met with you last week, okay? In fact, no, we talked about this one last week, so I just put it under contract. I'm buying a home in Tooele. They are in a situation where the two sellers are going to separate their lives, and with this property, they need a certain amount of cash down payment so that they can move and handle expenses and get into other properties that will work for each of them individually. So my role here is I made them a cash offer. There is some distress, and I want to point out distress happens in lots of different ways. Distress could be that the property itself is in poor condition. But a lot of times stress has more to do with the situation, and a distressed property can be because of divorce, a death in the family. There are so many different reasons. It can be financial. It could be somebody lost their job and they're worried about making payments. In fact, remind me about that one. I'll tell you a story in Magna in just a minute. But this gentleman and his soon-to-be ex-wife in Tooele, I'm buying their property. We are closing Wednesday, 2 days from now, and we will be bringing the payments on their house current, which is to the tune of about $20,000. We will be giving them $20,000 cash this week, and then from that point, they have 60 days to find rentals and to find a place to go where they can relax and they're not in a panic. They don't have to move, and more importantly for them, they don't have to come up with any money to make repairs, replace the carpet, clean the walls, things like that. So we're able to purchase this property at a price that they're happy with. And when I meet with a seller, I'll make them a cash offer, but I also go through the numbers of what would this look like if you listed it and I became your agent, okay? If we listed at this price, minus commissions, minus repairs, minus this is the difference to what you could walk away with, or you could take my cash offer. Which one works best for you? And in this situation, they chose my cash offer because it was close enough to their net if they listed it, which has a whole lot of questions in it. What if it doesn't sell for that amount? What if we have to make repairs? What if we do this? Who pays for those things? So those numbers a lot of times are close enough that many sellers will take the easier option to say, you know what, I'd rather not worry about it. We want to move on. We have enough stress in our lives. Let's do that option because it's guaranteed and we don't have to stress about it. And that's what happened in this case.
Well, just listening to you here, a couple things came to mind. One is, I think people, when they hear the word distress, think of that it's a property that's damaged. But what you're saying is that some of these properties are not damaged. It's just the occupants are damaged, so to speak, financially or morally, whatever's going on in their life. That is causing a good property, a good piece of property, to be sold quickly, not because the property's bad, but because their situation is bad. Is that right?
That's very true, because in this situation,
and is that common?
The property itself needs carpet, it needs a little bit of cleanup, but that's really the extent of the physical work that we will put into this house. Other than carpet and a few small repairs, and we'll do a home inspection to see what else needs to be done, but we'll make sure this property is ready for an end user. That's what my goal is. But my expected turn time on this house is we will close Wednesday. they have up to 60 days to live in the house. That doesn't cost me anything because with the amount of money that I still owe them, we're just going to deduct their mortgage payment until they move out. Okay, so if they take 2 months to move out, that costs them 2 mortgage payments, which it would have cost them that anyway. So other than that, once I receive possession of the property, there's a high likelihood that I will be completed with this property in less than 60 days from when I receive possession, because it doesn't need a lot of physical work, and we're not going to do a major remodel. We're going to clean it, we're going to replace some carpet, and then we're going to be done, and it'll be on the market soon.
The other question that came to mind when I was listening to you is that you use the word cash a lot. That term, cash a lot, which means, are you purchasing these properties? Is it better to purchase them under a cash basis than it would be financing for you as an investor? Obviously, it's better for cash. So is that what you try to do all the time?
Well, I rarely buy houses with an institutional loan, and I mean banks, I mean underwriting, I mean Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, right? That's rare for me. And the reason is, a lot of times we're buying a property that does not qualify for an FHA or even a conventional loan, okay? We bought a house about 2 weeks ago in the Harvard-Yale area of Salt Lake City. People know that area, very, very high-end neighborhood, right?
Yes.
But we bought that property, and when I say cash, with this property in Tooele, yes, we're coming in with cash because it's around $40,000 total. The property we bought in Harvard-Yale about 2 weeks ago, we came in with approximately $470,000, and we have private lenders that lend to us in that situation. So we pay points, we pay a high interest rate on this particular loan. We're somewhere between 10 and 12%, but I'm actually selling that property today. So we have points to the lender. We have 2.5 weeks of interest, but this afternoon I'm going to our title company to sign documents, and I will no longer own that house. So that's a good situation of we move them very quickly, and I don't want to get eaten up by interest.
Right.
But it absolutely makes sense for us to buy it with a 12% rate because we know it's going to be short term, in this case less than 30 days.
Yeah.
So for real estate agents listening, sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I'm like, okay, but how can this help me? And I think that you are a great resource for people here in Utah, because you talked about how you worked with an agent that she was like, I don't want this property listed under my name on the MLS.
Yes.
Like those properties that maybe in the physical term they are distressed, where it's like, okay, this is not like my other properties. Tell us a little bit about how you can help these agents listening.
Yeah, good. So agents, every agent is in a different situation, as well as every seller or buyer. And you can structure opportunities that work for everyone. So a lot of people would not expect this. We do a lot of marketing, mailers. We go direct to sellers as much as we can so that we can meet with them and walk through the property first, okay? But I also have at least half of the properties that we buy on a regular basis come through other professionals. And that could be a lender. It could be someone like Ann, who finds a property that it's in poor condition, and she calls me because she knows I can perform, right? In fact, Yoshi and I have both bought properties from Ann. So if you listen to last week's episode, and Yoshi is a very experienced investor in his own right.
Yoshi's behind the camera here.
Yeah.
So
there is another man in the room.
So with these properties, yes, in this case, the one I told you about in Taylorsville, we purchased this property, and it was a situation where a family member had passed away. The agent was representing the seller, and she called me because she got a message or an email or a text message from me. And she said, Trevor, come over and look at it and tell us what you could offer. We're going to list at this price. What could you offer us? And in this situation, I was able to make them an offer. We closed very quickly. She kind of didn't want to put it on the MLS under her name as an agent because it was in very poor condition, and she was worried about her reputation, which is fair. But we gave them the net that they expected. We paid the agent her commission, And we actually gave her a bonus of $1,000 because that's what the marketing piece that she responded to offered. So we paid her 3% commission plus $1,000, and the seller got what they wanted. What more can you ask for? We love to work with agents in this situation. Out of all the homes I bought in the last 12 months, I would probably say anywhere from 40 to 50% of them come from, like I said, other professionals, either a lender or some cases an appraiser, but agents absolutely, and other professionals in the business. Title companies sometimes call me and say, hey, this deal just fell apart because they found something in due diligence and the buyer walked, but the seller really needs to sell. That's a good situation to call Trevor Thompson.
So you have a reputation in the industry as the man to go to.
I hope so. I hope so, yeah.
When you're in trouble, call Trevor.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I really appreciated when we had talked earlier is you talked about how, sometimes agents might be skeptical, like bringing someone else in because you are a realtor, and they're like, well, I don't want to. What if I get juked out of this? But that you are fair and that you have them represent whoever they bring in.
So my commitment to a realtor is that I will never go around you to a seller. Most of the time that means that you bring us a property that we would not have known about otherwise. And I would say most of the time that's going to mean that it's not on the MLS. However, there are agents who bring me properties that are on the MLS, and because of the situation and because of what they know about the property, I will work with them. They can choose to represent the seller if they have that relationship already. In a lot of cases, I hire them to be my buyer's agent. Okay, this is a hard concept for some people to understand. I will hire you to be my buyer's agent if you are bringing me a property that I can buy. And I don't care what brokerage you're with. I don't care, any other brokerage out there. I'm with Equity Real Estate, but if you are my agent, you act as my agent, and I will pay you a buyer's agent commission, even if it's not listed on the MLS. So this property in Harvard Yale, this property was actually for sale by owner. The seller did not want representation because he didn't want to pay an agent. But this agent did enough of his own due diligence to learn what he needed and learn specifics of how to present an offer to this seller. And he shared that information with me, and I wrote the offer as the buyer. But this gentleman, this agent, represented me, and he got paid a commission, and we bought that property in, I think from the day I walked through it to the day we closed was 11 days. How many of your transactions are closing in 11 days?
Well, it seems to me, if I was a real estate agent and I was listening to that, I would say to myself, I have a buyer all the time.
Yeah.
Someone who's there that if I find a piece of property that could be a little bit difficult to sell or immediately needs to be sold because of some financial background, call Trevor.
Yes, and I would appreciate that. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm a realist. I'm an agent myself. I can understand the difference between if I can pay you enough to make it worth it and if it's better for you to list that house. And I'll be the first to tell you. I have a client that we listed their house on Thursday last week. Today I have 10 offers. But when they first called me to their home, they said, Trevor, do you want to buy our house? I think they said they wanted $300,000, okay? And with this property, I looked at it, I looked at the comparables. On that day, I didn't feel comfortable paying $300,000, but I told them, I think we're going to do much better if you list it, and here's why. It's going to be empty. They needed to buy a house before they sold this one because they did not want to end up in limbo and homeless, and they were in a situation where they could do that without me buying their house ahead of time. So what we did is we shopped for a house first. This was probably 3 months ago. We shopped for a house. They bought a house in West Jordan. It took them a month to clean out the house and get it ready for me to list, but we listed it on Thursday. Today, I had their house listed at $365,000. We have so much activity and offers on the property today that we raised the price to $385,000. And we have 4 offers above that price that are coming in with very strong cash positions, retail, okay? So thinking back, I would love to have bought this property for $300,000, but I think I would feel a little bit dishonest myself telling them that that's where I need to buy it. But because of the market, because of what developed in the last 3 months, we're doing much better than what I even forecasted for them. And they're thrilled. They already bought a new home where they live, and this sale is very easy, and I expect that we'll have that property sold within 3 weeks.
Well, as a real estate agent, it's not unusual to go to the advice of another realtor and share in selling or purchasing a property. Well, in this case, we're talking selling a property. So it seems to me that it would be a great idea to deal with somebody who actually does this a lot, that is able to get the job done and still share in the commission of the sale. So it's not unusual for real estate agents to share in their own office anyway. So all this is just going to another real estate agent who's an expert in this field and saying, hey, I need somebody to help me with this. Trevor, you're the man.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do. And I do have agents call me from time to time because they know that in my inventory, like I said today, I have 11 properties on my board. With 11 properties, they'll call me and say, hey, what do you have coming up? It's so hard to get a house. Can we buy one even before you do the remodel? Because we can handle a little bit of work on a house. In fact, I had an agent that I was friends with years ago when I went through Leadership UAR. He called me and said, Trevor, I have a unique buyer. She doesn't want to live in a neighborhood. She wants to live on a busy street. And I looked at my inventory, and I happen to have 3 properties that are on busy streets. Now, he did not end up buying one, but it makes me feel good that he knows he can call and ask that question, just because, I'm likely to have maybe something that will work for him.
Yeah. And I love that it's on a busy street. Most people are trying to get away from it.
Everybody wants to be off the busy street, but
Well, I do remember, I used to live on a busy street one time, and I remember people would say to me, don't you just hate this? But in some ways it was kind of nice because it was always life. There was always people walking by, there was always cars driving by, and if I looked out my back window, it was like the world was still in front of me, whereas sometimes you go to some of these properties that are way off, and you see a couple of birds, but that's all you're going to get, and that's serene to most people. But some people just like to have life.
Yeah. And to me, it confirms the idea that every buyer and every seller is unique in their own right. Most people want to be in a neighborhood. They want to be off the busy street. They want quiet, whatever their goals are. But there is a buyer for every single property out there, and everybody's situation is different for what they need and what they're willing to live with, and all you've got to do is throw it out there and see who's my buyer on this house. Because what did you say a little bit ago? We talked about there's somewhere between 7,000 and 30,000 real estate agents in Utah, right? But there's only one buyer that's going to end up buying each house when it becomes available, and our job is to market to as many as possible to get the best offer from that one buyer who's going to pay what we need and satisfy the seller's needs. And we do a great job as agents, as an industry. We do a great job with that.
So tell us a little bit about how agents can think outside of the box.
Okay, so this has to do with where do you look for properties. And I would say when you're trying to figure out what is a good deal, like for an investment or for Trevor, this is the same ways that how do you market as an agent for listings. Okay, if you talk with sellers, or if you let everybody you're interested in buying something, you increase your chances of finding the one property that you need. So I'm in a situation where I can buy anywhere from 3 to 6 properties every month, and surprisingly I've never been told no by my partners, and one of my partners is in charge specifically of he has to fund the deals. He's the one who gets the money to fund our deals. He's never told me no. Whenever I buy something, we've always been able to find money.
I've been that way with my wife too.
There you go. So I know about 2.5 years ago there was a month where we bought 9 properties, and he didn't tell me no, and I was surprised. It was a lot of work all at once, but we made it happen, and we sold a few, we kept a few as rentals, and we remodeled a few, so we were able to deal with our own business. But if the property works in terms of numbers, if we can buy it, remodel it, have our money costs satisfied, and still have a profit margin that's worth it for that much pain, Okay, so this is the formula. Typically, I need to be buying a house that I'm going to flip at around 80% less the cost of repairs for what I can sell it for. So that could range anywhere from 75% of after repairs value down to 50 or 60%, depending on if it needs a lot of work or not. So if I can buy the house, remodel it, cover my money expenses, and have a profit margin that's worth it, I'll buy it. It's that simple. It doesn't matter where it is. The price range kind of doesn't matter. I've talked about properties that I bought under $200,000 and properties that I will sell in the $800,000 to $900,000 range, just on the three that we've gone over in the past 10 minutes. So,
and you're saying that there's no difference as far as the profit margin. Do you think it's better to have properties that are not as expensive, or does it make any difference? Or you're just looking for the profit margin?
Well, I absolutely look for the profit margin, but I love to buy at. So right now in Salt Lake County, our median price range, so the middle of the market, is around $370 to $380. If I can be there and lower, I'll buy those every day of the week. When we get into the higher price ranges, I need to make sure that we have a comfortable margin because there's a lot more risk. So I will buy a house in West Valley, Taylorsville, Magna, West Jordan with a margin of $20,000 to $30,000 possible profit. Okay, and I say that sounds like a lot compared to what an agent commission is, right? But if you buy a house with a $10,000 profit margin, if you have to run a sewer line, you can lose that all at once. If you have to replace a furnace and an air conditioner, if you have to clean meth out of a property, you can lose that in one fell swoop just with a couple of different things going wrong. So we definitely want to be safe. But we will purchase properties that we can see a couple of multiple different disposition opportunities. So if I buy something that's at median price and down, I can turn that property and sell it, but I can also hang on to that property and rent it out, or I can call one of my property managers. And this is another great source for real estate agents. If you've got a property that has 4+ bedrooms and you want to sell it really, really quickly to somebody who's not that concerned about condition of the home, call a property manager. Because if the property manager won't buy it, chances are one of their clients will buy it. And you can move those really quickly also. Of course, call him after you call Trevor.
A little bit. Sure. And you had talked about financing where it was like 3 installments. What was that financing?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I purchased a home from a gentleman. He had his house paid off free and clear, and he wanted to move to Tooele County. He had family out there, and he had a place to go. So, my concern is always what costs do I need to cover? I need to cover purchase of the property, repairs, cost of money, and a profit margin. So in his case, he wanted a little bit more money, and it was really close to what I could offer. So what I did is I have to look at what can I eliminate. Can I reduce my remodel? Maybe. Can I reduce the purchase price? Maybe, but that doesn't make him happy, right? So reducing my cost of money is one of the options that we can do. So for instance, if I go borrow $250,000 from a private money lender, if I'm paying 12% interest, that's 1 point per month, which means my cost is $2,500 per month. Okay, that gets big if you're going to own the property for 6 to 9 months, right?
Right.
So in this case, I made him an offer where I was willing to go slightly higher than where I would have if I had to go get a private loan. But what I offered him was, I'll buy your house in 3 installments. I'm going to give you $10,000 in 3 days when we sign at the title company. When you give me the keys, I'll give you $20,000, and then when I sell the property, I'll pay you the entire balance of the loan. So what I did is I was able to pay him a higher purchase price in order to avoid paying interest with a private lender. So for a $250,000 home, I was into the home $30,000 of our cash, but it didn't cost me any lender money, any lender interest. So after 60 days, we turned his house around and I sold it to an end user, someone who lived in that property. And at that time, we got a payoff letter and we paid him off. He had a deed and a a note and a deed on the property that we recorded at title, and basically he became the seller financing. He became the bank in order to finance it, but we did it at 0%. So for his situation, that was a wonderful plan. Now, interestingly enough, his daughter called me about 3 weeks after I bought his house, and she said, "Trevor, I would like for you to buy my house with the 3-payment plan." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I just made that up." So I went and I looked at hers. The only difference with hers is that she had a mortgage in place, which is still fine. I gave her cash at closing. I paid her another cash amount when she gave me the keys to the property. And then when I sold the house, we purchased this home in a technique which is called subject to seller financing, or an all-inclusive trust deed. This is why agents need to talk to their title companies and learn what they can do. Because with an all-inclusive trust deed, that's a wraparound mortgage. That means I put a new trust deed around their existing mortgage, and I made the payment for 2 months before I sold the house. But after 2 months, we paid off the loan, we paid the seller the balance of what we owed her, and she was just as happy as her father. They both got the money they wanted out of the house. It was easy. They didn't have to have people come over and walk through their house. And, you know, could they have gotten more money if they listed the house on the retail market? Quite possibly, yes. Quite possibly, yes. And I'm sure I told them that. But, you know, for their needs and their situation, they did not want to deal with that. They just wanted to go. And that's what I gave them.
Well, you know, Trevor, I've been around quite a long time. I've been around quite a long time. And, you know, in the last 10 minutes, my head is going like this.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining that a lot of real estate agents, in listening to the proposals, the 3 payments that you've come up with, are probably thinking to themselves, did I get that? Did I get that? Did I get that? Again, I would probably say, you know, when you don't know something, call somebody who knows something, which is you, which is better able to help them negotiate through something like this. Because I've got a headache right now just listening to what you just had to say.
Now, I have another scenario that is very
It can't be worse because we're going to get some
So this other option that I have that is really successful with real estate agents, and if you're an agent, you're watching this video or listening to this podcast, this is what I want you to pay attention to. If you have an owner of a property that you have been trying to help them get ready to sell their house, and they need to get ready, they need to fix it up, they want top market value, all of those things, but their house is just not ready and they can't get over that hump, okay? I have had 2 agents that in the summertime, July and August, that they called me. They said, "Trevor, I've been trying to get this seller to move for 2 years. And because of the work their house needs, and because one of them wants to build a house," in fact, both of these in this scenario, both buyers wanted to build a house. So have you ever come across a builder that says, "We would love to build you a house, but we won't do it until you sell your house"? That's become more common lately, okay? So with both of these sellers, and both of these agents brought me this property, I went in and I looked at the house and I said, "Okay, I can offer you this much for the house, but here's how I can do it. We're going to close on the house. I will give you $15,000 now," which became their down payment with the builder. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But both of these sellers had the flexibility to remain in their home, to live there. Now remember, it's been sold on paper. Both of them had a mortgage in place. They stayed in the home and paid their own mortgage payment. One of them did it for only 60 days. The other one did it for 4.5 months. Okay? So I came up with $15,000 down. I purchased their home acknowledging that the mortgage was in place, because my investment depends on paying that mortgage off. But I didn't become a landlord. I did not rent the property to them at this point. Their house is sold, just the loan hasn't been paid off. So the builder is happy. The builder built their home. When the house was completed, they got their notice of substantial completion from the builder. And both of these people, they gave me at least 2 weeks notice, but I think they gave me more like 30 days notice. They said, "Trevor, our house will be ready in 30 days. That is my notice to get my hard money lender, my private lender, pay off their mortgage. Their mortgage is now paid, and they got the loan on their new home. And both of those buyers were able to close on a new construction project without going to temporary housing in between and moving one time. Their agent got paid up front when I bought their house, and their agent got paid to represent them as a buyer, where both of those sellers would not have been able to sell their house if they had to do it on their own, just because they couldn't get out of their own head.
Love it.
Okay?
I love that.
That's
creative. That's being creative. The only other thing I can ask you is, can I have your autograph?
Yes.
I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, that really is. Because, I mean, that's a huge problem for a lot of people. In fact, I had a son who recently built a home. And, he ended up, it was a huge problem. He ended my house for a while.
Yes, that is the danger. That is the danger.
And I didn't know for how long it was going to be. It didn't end up being too long, but I've certainly known parents that have ended up having their kids move in because they sold their house. They had to sell their house first, and then they said, "Mom, Dad, we're only going to be here for 6 weeks." And 6 months later, the house is torn up. The kids are still there. Yeah. It's kind of a nightmare. So that's brilliant.
Now, I will point out, that is a bird's eye view of these transactions. Everyone's scenario will be slightly different. They have different needs. So I would just recommend call and consult with us, even if it doesn't work out for your buyer in your situation. The other thing I point out all the time is that there's nothing that I do that is rocket science. It is not that difficult once you understand the concepts. As an agent, you can do this. As a seller, most of the time a seller can do this if they have the cash and the resources available to fix their home or something like that. It really just comes down to knowing what you're capable of and not overextending yourself, and being able to think at those non-conventional scenarios to get things done. But if you call both of those real estate agents, they're thrilled with me. They got 2 transactions out of the deal, and I got a house that I made a little bit of money on, and everyone is better off in this situation.
As Michael Scott would say from The Office, win, win, win for everyone.
So I want to hear about why, you had talked to me a little bit about this, but why you love taking the ugliest house in the neighborhood.
Oh, okay. So when I first became a property manager, and I think Yoshi would probably remember this house, I'm not going to say the address or the street, but my friend, his name is Matt, he bought a property in West Valley, and this was, maybe I'd been working with Matt for about 6 months, and this was literally the worst house in the neighborhood. It was definitely contaminated, where we would have wanted to call Ann, okay? This property had no plumbing for several years. I think it was around 8 to 10 years the plumbing was completely stopped up. They were literally using buckets and in some cases burying stuff in the backyard, okay? This property had 4 large hunting dogs living in the home that didn't have a kennel, didn't have a pen, so not only was there human cleanup to be had, but there was also canine cleanup to be had, as well as chemical cleanup to be had. I remember this property had a tree that had fallen over in the front yard, and the city had liens on the property for, what do they call that, for when your property is so bad that the city starts fining you for condition of the house, like if your weeds are too tall. But this was an entire tree that had fallen over the fence and on the sidewalk.
It's called the ugly tax.
Yes. So this property was the worst house in this neighborhood. And we were able to, through this process of buying the house, giving the seller what they needed. I think this seller bought a mobile home because they couldn't buy another house. So we gave the seller enough that they needed to move on. But the process of improving this neighborhood through cleaning up the yard, cleaning up the house, doing a complete decontamination and remodel of this property so that it was ready not just for someone to live in the property comfortably, but to become one of those houses that sold for the most on this block after that. And being able to see the change of not just cash in the investor's pocket, but really the change of taking this house that was so bad for this neighborhood and changing it. This is one of those steps that takes the neighborhood higher and at a better level for everyone who lives in a community, rather than just dealing with the problem house that's down the street. And that experience for me is just as rewarding as if I make money. In fact, if you ask me 3-4 months, even 60 days after I buy a house, how much money did you make on that? I don't know. I have to go look at my file. But if you ask me, was that a good project? Those are the things that to me make this a good project. This gentleman in Tooele, if they're able to separate and move on with their lives and both be happier than they are now, that's a win for me. Making a little bit of money is what feeds my family and what keeps, everyone in business. But at the end of the day, we really do, we're looking to help people, and we're looking to help people move on and gain their own goals. And yeah, sometimes people think of me as the big bad investor who's only in it for himself. But in reality, there are so many different scenarios that we help and improve. That's probably the most rewarding part of it, even better than the money.
Well, and I absolutely love that because you're taking these houses that we talked about how they were untouchable at the beginning. Like someone might be distressed because someone's in jail or there was a murder or whatever it might be, and they're hard deals. These aren't easy deals to do, but to be able to provide those options for not only the buyer and sellers but also the agents. Yeah, it's just nice that you provide a solution and also make the neighborhood look better.
Yes, and that's very helpful. I have a property right now in Roy. I signed documents, I think it was the 28th of December. We signed documents. All of my money is sitting at the title company, in fact, still. This gentleman, several years ago, he was in a bad financial position, but he was worried about making sure that his wife had a place to live for the rest of her life. Well, as it turned out, she happened to pass away before he did. So now that his wife has passed away, he was sure that he would go first. And he's an older gentleman. But he called me and he said, Trevor, I have nothing left. My wife is gone. I don't care about saving the house anymore. It's in a bankruptcy. Because of my payments to this Chapter 13 bankruptcy, he's struggling to live every month because all of his money is paying off the bankruptcy. So we looked at the numbers. And we decided that I can pay him enough for the house to not only pay off the house, but also to pay off the bankruptcy, and he gets to walk away with approximately $60,000 to begin a new life. And he said, Trevor, I'm going to call my daughter and my son, and I'll call you in a couple of days. And he called me 2 days later, and he said, Trevor, why didn't you call me back? And I said, well, you were going to call me after you talked to your son and daughter. But he said, come back over, write the offer, please. So we went over, we wrote the offer. Right now, we have all signed. My money's at the title company. The biggest hiccup here is we're waiting for the bankruptcy trustee, attorney, or judge. One of those has to be approved by the court. But we have paid the bankruptcy off. They have their money. They just have to sign the paper that says they have their money. Mm-hmm. And that's the frustrating part. But we can help in situations that are difficult, like court, bankruptcy, probate. We've helped people with tax liens. We've helped people with weird scenarios where someone else has a lien on their house and they're not quite sure who it is. We help them figure that out as well. But as you say, these are untouchables. These are properties that are not, you can't sign a listing agreement and throw it on the MLS because there are third parties that have to be walked through the process and given time to do their thing. In fact, I own one of my rentals right now. I'm remodeling. It's a property that I purchased from a bankruptcy, and the attorney, the trustee, and the judge signed off on my ability to buy the house. They allowed me to keep the mortgage with the bank in place because I showed them how I'm going to be refinancing within 90 days. And I bought that house, I think it was December 10th, so I have until January, February, March. I have until March to refinance that house, and we just painted it last week. So we're well on our way. I will do my part as much as possible. But if we got to the end of the 90 days and I wasn't ready yet, what would I do? Well, I would call my private money lender. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to be done before my deadline with the court.
These are all exciting ways of looking at real estate. I've been highly educated, haven't you, Stephanie?
Yeah, and I think that the thing that I love about nominations is that, everyone's nominated by different people. So
That's
we're getting, it's sort of like listeners get this like mosh podge of different talents and everything. And so I definitely think that you are a resource that any agent here in Utah, that they should have your number and yeah.
Yeah, now, are we going to go into a back part of that, or do we want to end this front part? Or is there something else you want?
We don't do back part with
nominations. Oh, that's right, we don't.
Yeah.
So...
anything that you want to add before we close it up?
Yeah. I would tell agents, because that's our specific audience here, I would tell agents, don't be afraid to look at the scenario from the eyes of someone who has done lots of different things. The other thing is, every once in a while, agents will get upset with me because we send out text messages and emails to other agents. And I hope after listening to this podcast that you understand that we might send 2,000 text messages or emails out to agents, but there are those 5 that need me, right? And possibly you could come in contact with a seller that needs me as well. So, we do marketing because you have to be a lot of places a lot of the time in order to get what you're looking for. And, I hope you understand that. I would love to buy a house from you. I would love to put together a deal that's beneficial for everybody. And, if you're really upset by getting a text message from me, then please just block the number, right? But, my name is Trevor Thompson. I'm with Equity Real Estate. You can reach me by phone or text at 801-712-4797. That is my cell phone. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody put me on an insurance website so I get 5 insurance calls all at once. But, we deal with that. If I'm marketing to bother you, you have the right to bother me, right? But hopefully we can do a deal that's good for everyone.
Okay, now, Trevor, Ann was the one that nominated you to be here on our podcast, called Nominations. For what reason?
Because she nominated him?
Yes, because nominations is the only way you get on nominations, Steph, is...
By being nominated.
By being nominated, and Ann from Meth Mob nominated you, Trevor. In fact, I remember sitting here, it was yesterday, it was like a month or so ago, right? Ann sat across from us, and we said to Ann, who do you have that you can nominate? And who did she say?
Trevor Thompson.
Trevor Thompson. Now, Trevor, here you sit. We finally got you in here. We got this done. We've really enjoyed your the information, honestly. All joking aside, tremendous information for all the agents. Now that we have you for a moment, though, we need you to nominate someone. Okay. And who would that be?
Well, and I can think of several people that I could nominate. My question is, what if I say something here as part of the podcast and that person is not available?
We'll make them available.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
No one turns us down in nominations.
No one gets away.
We will get them regardless. Yes, no matter what we have to do, no matter how much money we won't pay.
You can give me your top 2 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And say a little thing about them. Say why.
Well, I have several friends that understand well, what we do, and I think I would nominate probably one of 2 people, and both of them work in lending. Okay, in fact, both of them are private money lenders, and one of them is also a institutional lender. He's a mortgage lender in his business. So I would nominate probably Matt Atkinson, who is one of my mentors and the person that I was his property manager for 4 years that you heard me talk about earlier.
Okay. And Matt works for
Intercap Lending.
Oh, Intercap.
Okay, he's a manager over at Intercap, and
we love Intercap.
Matt is involved with many different things. Okay, if you want someone who's well-rounded with their real estate experience and with their life experience, I would definitely say Matt is a good way to go. The second person that I would nominate is also Matt.
Second Matt.
Matt Strong. Matt Strong is a private money lender. He is very intelligent with investments. In fact, he is one of the people that I worked with on purchasing that property in Harvard, Yale, just 2 weeks ago. Matt also has been a broker, I believe, he's been the owner of a brokerage, at least for real estate, and he's into a lot of different things with real estate and investments. These are smart guys. If you can get either one of them on your podcast, you would be doing very well, much better than me.
Well, we're going to
I mean that honestly.
We're going
to
to use your name in order to get them to come onto the podcast. And Stephanie, I don't think we've ever had anybody not come on, right?
No. So, and I'll cut
whether that's true or not, we don't know.
I'll cut that. I'll cut that out. So it's just like one of them. So if you just want to send me their info, but we're good to close, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Trevor, for sharing with our listeners how they can secure a house for their clients' homes with distressed properties.
Now let us tell you why I try to explain why we have a motto here called securing a house for your home. So where this comes from, I mean, if you just look at it, it looks like that's pretty bland, but the backstory behind it isn't. So I gotta find somebody who's ever heard of Art Linkletter. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
Have you ever heard of Art Linkletter? Oh, sorry, no. I mean, I always have to be the only guy, which means I'm the oldest in that knows this guy. But you've heard of Bill Cosby, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Bill Cosby was before in his better days. Bill Cosby was the host of a show called "Kids Say the Darndest Things."
Yeah.
You ever heard of that?
I have.
Okay. Well, the originator of that was a guy by the name of Art Linkletter, who had a radio show in the 1950s called Kids Say the Darndest Things. In the 1960s, it actually went to a television show, and they have Art Linkletter, which is this older guy who's just asking these kids these things. One of the episodes from the 50s, which is just a radio show, has Art Linkletter talking to a little boy, and he says to the little boy, "So, where do you live?" And the little boy responds, we live in a hotel right now. He says, "Oh, so you don't have a home?" And he said, "No, Mr. Linkletter. We have a home. We just need a house to put it in." So with that simple story, we have kind of taken that as our, our motto here at Title I, in that everyone has a home because it's their family or their loved one, whoever it happens to be, and they live somewhere. We want to be able to provide a house for people to take their homes and put it in there, and we want to secure that, and we do that through title insurance, and of course that's done by the real estate community in general. So that's the background of where this securing a house for your home, which we mention in every single podcast episode that we have. So.
Great. And your home could be on a busy street or in a
That's
private neighborhood or in a hotel, apparently.
Your home, exactly.
Yeah.
In a hotel, that worked perfectly, yeah.
Well, great. I feel like that was a good episode.
Oh, absolutely. Positively. And a lot of good information. And one where a real estate agent that was listening to it, particularly a real estate agent who has some background, a little bit of background to kind of understand all the principles that you were talking about, should be excited about, I would think.